welcome to the special meeting Wednesday, August 19th of Economic Development Commission. Call the meeting to order at 6:14. First item on our agenda is the minutes from our meeting on June 11th. Entertain a motion to accept those minutes if everyone had an opportunity to review them. Motion. Chatty.
Second.
Scott. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Abstain.
Thank you. Okay, public comment. We've moved up on our agenda. Any public comment? Public comment, public comment. Thank you. Next on our agenda is the Business District Connectivity meeting that we had from July 29th. Thanks to everybody who attended. Bob Hill did a job and a half out with the flyers going door to door. I think he said he hit about 75 businesses within the business district across into Luna Drive Research over on that side, as well as some additional. We did get a lot of feedback on the night. We had neighbors from the Toll Brothers Regency project, the housing community that was there, as well as some neighbors that we had luckily a chance to speak with prior to the presentation. I think by having all of the slides up for everybody to see and the design up for everybody to see, there were a lot of questions, and those questions were able to be answered, or we tried to answer a lot of them before the actual presentation even took place. So I think that was good. We did receive a reminder. This was sent to us as well as the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, that any additional feedback or questions is due by the 21st, which then we will summarize and get back with the folks from SLR. Several issues that were discussed on the night with regards to the plantings and trees and the right type and so on. SLR has done an inventory of the existing trees and the types that there are. They're going to be sending us out more information about those types and specific to some feedback that we received from a resident who was very familiar with these type of native plants and species of them. So they took all that into consideration, and they are working on that. The residents from the Regency community offered their concerns about crossing Bradley Road daily between the two phases or the two areas of their complex, that they have to cross daily for use of the community center, the pool, their mailbox, and so forth. So we have worked out with SLR making some changes to where there's an existing sidewalk crosswalk between the two, that if you look on the maps, you don't even see it. So it's not there, but it is there if you drive down there. And I drove down and kind of watched for a few minutes. I pulled into their driveway, and I could see where their concerns are, that when you make the turn from Litchfield Turnpike onto Bradley Road, while there's a sign there, it's not big enough or attractive enough to get your attention to slow down what these folks are trying to get across. So certainly something that will be acknowledged and worked on. With regards to that project, the state is now looking at getting all the background for the right-of-ways for the project, and there's going to be some more meetings with some stakeholders down there, Crest in particular.
I'm sorry, I missed the meeting. Were there more questions about, or concerns about the stoplight?
There were several.
Yeah. Okay.
The feedback from the state has been that we do not meet the criteria. No, it has nothing to do with the expense of it.
Okay.
It has to do with we don't meet the standing criteria for which warrant a light. So the first application went through with that. They were relying on information that was more current However, at that point in time, the state had not adopted that version of the regulation of the warrants. Since then, they went back, and the state says, while you are considered, Woodbridge is a rural community, this is more of a urban roadway because it's a connection to. So therefore, it requires traffic slowing down and so forth. But one of the questions that was asked by one of the residents was, if these changes are made as designed with some traffic calming measures, would that ever preclude another application going forward for a traffic light? And the answer was emphatically no, it would not affect. So down the road, should something change,
Sure.
it still may come. But the state did reject the portion of the project which was going to put the infrastructure in the ground, electrical conduit and so forth. So it was there. Could they do it? And they said no. It was like $30,000. And they said, no, you're not going to do that. We can do it down the road if we have to.
So Cliff.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I apologize to the group for my
No
lateness.
worries.
I think it's Thursday and Wednesday. The two things, in looking at, even though they're not getting the light, right now as you're going south on Amity Road, and I sat in the office there watching that intersection for 3 years, so believe me, I watched the demolition derby there. Currently, there's one lane that goes south. And so what happens is when the cars go down south, all of a sudden someone decides they're going to make a left. Car behind them, they're going to make the left. And then at the last second, they try to go around them. But there's not really a link. They're in the shoulder to try to get around them. And now the car behind them is like, I'm stuck behind them. Or they're crashing into them is what happens. On the other side, there's two lanes that actually starts right around where the Willows is, and they start racing up Amity Road North. I think the change that they've made here by making a left-hand turn lane, by making it one lane on the other side, and having a straight lane to the right, is actually going to improve that intersection. Plus, the people on the other side won't have the opportunity to get into the race that they get into when it becomes two lanes. So that's going to help that too. The only concern that I had that I saw later when I looked at the plan, which I mentioned to Cliff, is there is a bus stop right at that intersection on the south side. And if the bus is going to stop there, it's going to create the same problem, because the bus is going to stop, everyone's going to want to go around the left of it, they'll be in the turn lane. And so that bus stop should be moved one way or the other, because that's going to be a bad spot for it in that way. They did also, I don't know if you mentioned before I came in, I mentioned the meeting, the sidewalk actually stopped right at Wells Fargo. Well, the reality is, knowing from working in that office, a lot of the people that would come up, the caregivers that would come from the bus, would walk up there, like, run the sidewalk another 200 feet so that they can get into the entrance of that office complex there. And literally, they could probably make up for that based on what you explained, Cliff, you could literally trim back some of the sidewalk on Bradley Road, because those residents aren't going down that way to Bradley Road. They could go across the street if they chose to do that.
And the state thus far has had no issue with that ad.
Yeah.
So we haven't submitted everything back to them, but that was just kind of the ask, and they've said there should be no issue.
I mean, the meeting was well attended, and there was a lot of good questions. And
Before you came in, I did recognize the amount of work that you did to bring those people in, so thank you.
yeah, I try to get the people that were in that, I basically presented to them as, look, you're either going to come to this meeting and say, oh wow, that's great, or what are you thinking? And don't want to have a situation where somebody comes in here and says, how come you guys didn't? Well, we try to provide people as much opportunity as possible in that way. The other thing, by the way, that I mentioned when I did go around to the business owners, I said, look, we are thinking about restoring, kind of having the businesses come in and talk about what they do. There were some interesting businesses that I visited that people just don't know what they do. And if they came here and had a chance to speak, it's a little bit of a free advertisement, but they could also share with them some of the challenges they have. So it was, I gained some good insight in speaking with some of the people I visited. So.
Great. Okay, anything else on that? More to come with upcoming meetings with them.
When is the next, is it 90% is the next one?
They do not plan as of now to do a 90% presentation. They're going to take all this feedback, combine it all, and then go from there. Apparently, the way that SLR and most of these engineering consultants work is that they do one presentation at the 30% plus the planning meetings and sessions, and that's it for public input. So by doing the second one and allowing more back and forth with the residents and business owners, we're giving them more of an opportunity than apparently typically would be. So I think that that's a plus.
Are there meetings, though, for the expected business interruption that will be caused by the construction?
Once they're at that point, and once these right-of-ways are nailed down.
Those meetings will
with the
then
state,
start as to,
there will be notices and information put out to the businesses. And now the fact that we've got more online communication, Tony went out with some of the interns for the 30% presentation and was able to obtain contact information by email to many, many more businesses and commercial property owners than we ever had. So that has all been added to the town email list and the selectmen's email that you get, and then more information will be coming forth to them to let them know this is the timeline, from, I'm assuming, beginning on June 1st or some arbitrary date through this is what you can expect in a longer business.
one thing that just occurred to me, and maybe somebody's maybe taking care of it, maybe Meek is, but we have a new operator coming in on Lucy Street at the Warner elderly housing. And, I think it's on the north side, the connectivity there, right? It's on the north side of Lucy.
The trail is on, no.
It's
The
on the
trail's
south.
on the opposite side.
So we don't necessarily, other than normal, but, because I was afraid that they may be doing something in capital improvements and then all of a sudden say, oh, wow, you shouldn't have done that because now we're going to have to take them out. That's kind of like.
Yeah, no, so the 8-foot trail
Is
that's
gonna
going to
be-
be on Lucy Street is going to be on the side of Crest.
The
So-called
south
south
side,
side.
south side, okay.
And the sidewalks will be
Because they could be
replaced.
doing fencing and stuff like that on the capital improvements pretty.
I couldn't
when they
say.
close.
But the sidewalks there, which are not in terrible condition,
Right.
but, when you're talking about, 55-plus folks, age restricted,
62.
you'd want to make sure that, you've got sidewalks that are safe for them, so they'll be replaced.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Anything else on that? Okay. Moving on to our goals, does everybody have or had received at some point the goal sheets that we discussed? I do have some copies if you need them. Want a hard copy?
I have from
If you have an extra
fire
one, I'd love
company, but.
Yeah, it hasn't
Is there
changed
something
since.
new?
Nope.
Okay, here.
I got it.
No, thanks.
So these were notes that were submitted. Chad, do you want to?
Yes.
Yes, I will do.
These were some goals and points brought forward. The first one's from Chadi, and the second page was from Terry. And this was based on what our goals and objectives were stated for the last budget session. So we took a look. I think that our work with the planner is going to, I'm looking at Chadi's point number 1. Work with the planner certainly is something that we're able to do, and I think that bringing them in to our meeting probably in October. September, we already had a request for the folks from Rex, Mike Harris, to come and speak to us. But if we can get the planner, or even have a special meeting with regards to dealing with the planner for the short and medium range vision, strategy, and tactics for building the grand list. I think it's a great one that we should include going forward. You want to make any specific points from your notes that you sent beyond, to expound on it?
Nope.
Okay.
Sorry, I gotta refresh my memory. It's a little while ago.
A lot of these items, both Chatty had and Terry had, with inventory, property accounting, and so on. We have a start of that, talking with the folks to looking at our former assessment from Main Street. They're now kind of looking a little differently at what should be included in this listing. So we want to know the name of the business, ABC. What do? They make widgets. Who's their point of contact, whether it be owner, manager, whatever. And then we also want to look at the assessment for the personal property, which we have that information from the last year from the assessor that we had sent out last year and asked for folks to go through the list, whether it be by Google, whether it be by knowledge, and say, okay, we know that ABC Corporation does X, and exactly that. Who are the players there? What do they do? And where they are on the tax roll. And then I think what that ultimately can play into is when you're looking at some type of strategies for incentives for some of these businesses looking at it. Are they able to bring in any other type of, let's say, technology or energy efficiency, right? Let's say they're able to bring in solar, and you can able to offset some of what they have, their costs. And if we could find some type of incentive program, grants or otherwise, to kind of just feed this out to the businesses that are here, I think it's a plus.
So that list exists or exists in partial form, or?
The list, an Excel exists. Which was a Google Shared Drive, which we can no longer use, but we can resend that out, and we can Rick was going to take a look at this and go at it while he has some time. And now they're saying, well, you want to add this, you want to add this. So I'm trying to get clarity in exactly what it is that Main Street, for our assessment purposes, is looking for, which can ultimately, I think, help us take the assessment out of the equation. Just say, what it is it that we want besides this information? What's going to help us? Help us help them.
So you're saying while we're doing the work, when do we want to add it?
Exactly.
Well, okay.
I mean, it'd be nice to have all the information you've mentioned, but maybe more of a high-level information in terms of what industry and segments they support. So we understand, hey, we have predominantly medical supported industries in our town or whatever. I'm just making it up.
Right.
So we know if that's kind of, does that drive our direction going forward? Does it say we want to add to that, take away from that, get something that supplements that industry, or maybe there's a whole bunch of different industries that kind of feed off each other or don't feed off each other, or maybe there's, having that information, broken down by industry. some lower level.
I think
Segments of
may have been in May. The Greater New Haven Chamber had one of their economic development committee meetings, talked about the innovation pathway. Were you on that call with bringing in quantum and other types of computing
I'm
through
not quite
Yale?
sure, I don't think so.
And the idea was that from the train station up into the Yale Medical Center area, they want to expand on that with housing, with these buildings that are looking at, quantum computing and all this stuff, and they have billions of dollars that are available for this type of research and work. And therefore, if you've got that, you need some kind of segmentation of the supporting businesses that could potentially find a place on, as an example, some open space on Research Drive that can support that, for whether it be ancillary or otherwise. But, is that where they want? They're not there yet, obviously. But I think down the road, if we do have, to your point, a listing of where we are, well, maybe that's a perfect example of somebody who can tap into this money that's there and grow. There is a company that's down there in the business district in the back that is, I'm trying to think of the name of the company. They started out there in a small office space. They still have a larger but office space. But now they're manufacturing in Naugatuck because they had the space. They had, if you go up Route 63 in Naugatuck, you had that big plant where they used to make candy bars, which was vacant for a long time, whether it's him or someone else that's in there. But we just don't have that infrastructure in place where they've already had it. But certainly that's something that should be included.
So, remind me, so how is this information gonna be collected?
So what we have already in place is names and the assessments. That's from the assessor.
Yeah,
We would be able to, beginning now, look at some of this with Rick's computer expertise. And
Expertise.
and then ultimately, I think, which I have it further down the agenda, but we will be, starting in September, getting 2 students from Amity through this voice program.
yep,
And this is possibly a project that, working with you, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
kind of a liaison between the school and the boards, say, here's a perfect job for you guys to tackle.
so they would be looking at the data, or are is there an opportunity to go supplement the information?
I think it could be supplemented, but they could take half of this list of 300 plus entities that are on the list and break it out and say the first 100, you're gonna take this and you're gonna have a month to do it. And in your time, half hour a day, study hall, whatever, you can go look up and say, ABC Corporation, what do they do? Who's the principal? What are they doing? And then,
Fun. Yeah.
if it's there,
Great
then we
project.
could certainly expound on it.
Okay. Okay, but we're not reaching out to the businesses to ask them to input. Correct.
I mean, if you want to take some of these lists and knock on doors, and when we had our meetings with Dale Krupp from Rex, he said, you don't want to go and knock on the door and say, hi, I'm Cliff Lynch, what do you do here?
Right,
You want to walk in the door and have an idea, and then allow them to, kind of take you where they want to go and say, well, these are the issues that we have, but at the same time,
Yes.
this is what we're doing here. We're manufacturing this, or our product is Y, right, something like that.
So it sounds like that we'll start with the information we have and look at, how can we look at it? Yeah.
And I think some of that also will feed into the marketing plan. Because now you're gonna have a better idea of what you
What
have.
are we working with? Yeah.
Perfect.
Are we at a stage on the agenda to talk about these
Goals?
goals and objectives?
Yes.
think I see in Shadi's and Terry's, the thing that jumps out at me is coming up with the economic development strategy document. And I don't think it has to be so daunting that, we can't tackle it because I don't think we have that large a business district that we're not a city that we have to, just tremendous moving parts. So that strikes me from both of those goals as something that we should maybe pick out of there. They're in both of them, and come up with an economic development growth strategy. What do we want to see developers and investors build in our business district to create the neighborhoods and communities that we as a town and as particularly that area want? And then what I also notice in both of them is the incentives to get that done. When Dale Croup came and spoke with us, Sean and Bob, you were on the commission at that time, and I think Dale was probably working, that's got to be 3 years ago now, maybe? 4? 3?
Probably 3.
I'll be off 27. So, but the long and short of it was, there's a huge change in the incentives that we can offer, and we need to start talking about that now to go to the Board of Selectmen, because that's in both of these here, in yours and in there. And that incentive is under 12-65B. And we should all look that up in the Connecticut General Statutes.
I love that you know this.
Huh?
I love that you know this.
Well, the reason I know it is because Dale came here and he was going to teach us economic development. And he says there really isn't any tools for incentives, because he gave the example that he went to Home Depot and they had this thing where you could freeze the taxes if they improved it, and big whoop, it amounted to $2,000 a year in savings on the taxes because they put a $50,000 improvement in the Home Depot or something like that. And so there used to be caps on how you would freeze the taxes. They could only be certain dollar limit caps and certain year caps. That is blown away right now. And under 12-65B, you can essentially charge no taxes for 30 years. You can freeze the taxes at the baseline right now for 30 years, and it's a case-by-case basis. So if we know what we want to build, and we say, please come build it. Take a piece of property as an example that's paying $10,000 a year in taxes. Put in $10 million and raise the taxes that we could have charged at $310. We'll take that $300,000 and we will freeze it so you don't have to pay it. You just pay the $10,000 for 30 years. I'm just giving you an example. That's probably 40% of the capital stack that developer needs to come in to build that $10 million project. So if you essentially gave him and said, for 30 years, I'm gonna freeze your taxes at the baseline of 10 grand, which is good because we're getting 10 grand now, we're gonna get 10 grand next time, right? But we're gonna end up with a $10 million investment in that property, which is gonna create jobs, activity. As long as that project fits with our growth strategy plan for that community and what the community wants, I think it's that simple. I think those tools are now wide open. We see other communities are aggressively going at this. I can point to people that are adopting this and saying, look, we want the Board of Selectmen not to have to go to special meetings. We want to drop the barriers. We want to have, if you want to invest, we want you to invest. And we'll come up with a tax freeze program that fits with our goals and plans to build what we want to build down there. That's just one incentive. There are others, but I'm going to rest and get your feedback on that. But I think if we know what we want to build, and then there's those kinds of incentives, then it's like Bob getting the word out. Like, go to all the developers, the investors. Don't go with TIF. Don't go with tax incremental financing, because you're going to give it away to the bond guy. I think the statute's wide open right now to do it sort of privately with lenders, and you don't have to go to TIF. And I don't know if you guys know what TIF is, but you can also set up a business district, and you can set aside that money out of your fund balance. It doesn't really go into your fund balance, and then you can capitalize that and actually, give it to the capital stack, to the developer to come in and build something. But I think those incentives down there would really work if we know what we want to build. We got to know what we want to have built, though.
Scott, to
So I'm
that
gonna
end,
rest.
so to that end, because I'm thinking in my mind, people that are watching say, okay, we're charged to try to grow the grand list, and someone's listening right now saying, okay, we're talking about freezing. Wait a minute, we're not going to see you for 30 years, whatever. So what size business, if you had it in your wildest dreams, what size business and how many employees would that entity, a starting point, if you had to guess, be for us to say, yeah, that would qualify for that? Because I don't think someone that opens a 2,000 square foot little store or whatever is going to fall into that criteria. I think it's going to be something that's going to be someone that's going to generate people that come to town that are going to help support the other businesses, and eventually that'll help create more other businesses, so we're going to get the benefit that way. So if you had to guess, how many employees would you think that entity, or how big that thing would have to be to say, yeah, that one qualifies? And if I know I'm kind of hitting you with that, and that may be something to think about between now and the next meeting. Who do we give that to? Because I don't think everyone that walks in the door that's going to open a business is going to qualify for, oh yeah, we're going to freeze your taxes for 30 years, because they've got to be bringing something here to bring other businesses is where I'm at. Like, look, if Yale decided to open up a unit, or a small, hospital unit in Woodbridge or whatever, like they took over Milford Hospital type thing, yeah, that'd probably be pretty exciting. Yeah.
Or somebody's coming in to build housing, mixed, we have mixed use. Somebody's coming in to build housing over retail and needs that contribution on our part to that capital stack, so that they, makes it, and that's why they choose us. We market it this way. We have a plan. We want you developers. We start now knocking on the doors saying, our Board of Selectmen are more than willing to listen and work hard. I think it is case by case in that situation, and I think you want to make sure it's fair and it fits with your plan. So I think all that needs to be done, and I don't claim to be an expert on it, but I think it exists. And I think that's where our focus from EDC should be, is what we want, what our town wants to build, and then how do we get there? And then we say, really, we're going to be agreeable to you. We're not going to fight. This is what we decided we want, and we're willing. Yeah, it would be nice if they would just build it and we could get charged taxes day one. But we have to compete with other communities. We have to, and we can do that if we really have the desire to grow. I've always questioned whether we have the desire to grow, but that's something that I think if we wanted to grow, that's the way I would pursue it. And I think as we develop that plan, I think we'll know better what we're looking for. But I see it personally, probably in that area, as housing over retail, as mixed use, vertical mixed use, as opposed to horizontal mixed use. Floating zones, adding zoning. There are other incentives that we can talk about too when we get into this, when it comes to economic development, because it's not just economic development, it's housing as well. So there are 3 other statutes that deal with incentives for other kinds of housing to be built as well. So if we put it all together in that plan, I think we can get it done. I really do. I feel positive about it, but we need to start.
After we had our special meeting, I'm sorry if you had something to say, our special meeting when we talked about mixed use, I think I can speak for all of us, that we were all in agreement that that's what we want to see, right? We want to see mixed use, retail, restaurant, whatever, with housing above. But I'm going to toss back to you what you've said to us on numerous occasions. What do the people that are there on Main Street want? And when we're talking about the goals and what we want, right, you said we as a town, not just we, 6 of us sitting here.
Right.
Who and how do we get the information? So who are you going to go and talk to say, Mrs. So-and-so on Landon Street, what would you like to see over here? Or Mr. So-and-so who owns this commercial property, what would you like to see as a neighbor? So what's the best way to get to that point, to come up with those goals? We could brainstorm all day long.
Sure.
But
maybe we present something, right? Like if we just ask. Who knows how we'll do that, but we could just get input. But we could also share proposal and why, and the rationale for it. Would be enough effort to even get to that. So if we were to come up on and say, here's the 4 to 5, 3 to 4, whatever it is, type of, I was gonna say industries, but maybe not, like that we would like to, where we see as the most appropriate fit for the town of Woodbridge, because it fits with this vision, right? And what is that vision? So we'd have to give a little bit, and then we go, you know, we say, hey, this, and we get some input on it. Have we missed it? What do you guys think of this? Have we missed anything? Versus, I mean, I'm thinking it's easier for people to react to something versus just white slating it. And then we're just gonna get a bag of stuff without giving them the context. So I think maybe the work would be for us, I don't know the process, but for us to come up with that list. But also, we need to articulate the vision. You know, is that for us to do?
And is that something that we could take a conversation with the planners who have been dealing with towns
This would
of
be great.
different sizes, right? And say, this is what we're thinking, what do you think? And then you can also use some of that AI technology that the Realtor came in with and say, well, what don't we have? Right? We know kind of what we have, but what don't we have? And where are the folks going from here to go out to eat? Where are they going to
Shop.
think? Anything such as that, right? If you take all that information, put it together, and then there must be a way, I mean, even as elementary as SurveyMonkey, put something out to,
Totally.
on the, through the town, saying, EDC is looking for your feedback.
for your
What do you think? Therefore, you're reaching out to those folks that we want to be in their neighborhood, we want to help build, or, for that matter, where else is it a possibility down the road? Where's some other opportunities for development? And that's something else that we've spoken about. You know, we don't always have to focus right down there within the business district. There's other.
I also don't think it's just getting input from that area, it's from the entire
Oh,
town.
absolutely.
We could cut the data by that
Mhm.
area.
Cliff, I mean, do you have any suggestion, you know, when we start to say, well, we're the center of the universe, we're gonna set up our own surveys and our forums and our community conversations. I mean, I think every commission is doing that, right, pretty much, or a lot of them are. So I don't have any great, you know, magic how you get everybody to coordinate and say, this is what the town wants to do, because there are different parts of the town. But clearly, there are two areas of the town that are undeveloped and owned by the town with infrastructure. Those are two clear areas that can be in the conversation for economic development for this town going forward in the future. Whether it does it or not is another story. And there's an area down in our current business district that is built out, that does have development and is a different challenge. It's a different zoning challenge and historical challenge there. It's not a blank slate. So certainly, those other, you know, if you say those are the areas that we want to develop, those are easy. Those are blank slates. You know, you can get those moving pretty far. So maybe it's a top down to us that says, look, we do want an economic development strategy. And every single commission has said, yeah, you guys got to come up with it, and we want you to run with it. We really do want, everybody's saying we want economic development strategy, but we never get there. So does that mean they really don't want economic development strategy? You have to, in my opinion, you have to imply that. If you say, we want economic development, but we never get there, then we don't want it. So maybe, I don't know how you get there, but maybe it comes down from the top in the groups, and they say, look, you guys need to come up with a plan, choose where it's going to be, get the best buy-in you can, and because I think we have the land, we have the tools, we have the proximity. I think we have all the stuff if we want to do it. I really do.
So Scott, I'm going to throw out something here that I used in the past. And literally, I learned this from the guy who was the president of Dunkin' Donuts. And he would go out and he would do an initial was a site they were considering for development. And before they got into all the car counting and all the demographics, it is 3-point system, 3-legged stool. And each one was 1 point, and he had to, each one, if they got to 0.7 on the initial review, got over 2.1 average, they would consider pursuing it further. And the first one was the demographics. And we had a criteria in terms of how many people within X amount of miles in order to get 0.7, 0.8. In this case here in Woodbridge, because I've done for a couple different concepts, I've come into Woodbridge and look at, so we fall below. I will tell you, if I was rating the demographic in terms of the population, the income and that type of thing is up there, but the number of people is not enough. Okay, it's low. So that puts us at a disadvantage from the first leg of the stool. The second one is traffic. And as much as we speak about traffic, having heavy traffic on Amity Road and Litchfield Turnpike, it's probably not above average. It's probably about average. It probably just makes the criteria. Okay. Part of that, when you're looking at the traffic, you're not only looking at, you know, I could take you out to a road where the traffic is 40,000 cars a day and go, oh, that's great, but the traffic is going 60 miles an hour and there's no slowdown lane. So that traffic in the second lane, you can't count it and they can't make the turn. So the quality of the traffic doesn't really help you all that much. Okay, so that's the second one. So we kind of just barely probably make the traffic scenario. Not on Bradley Road way in the back, but on where the most of the business district is. And then the third one, which is the one where we're woefully off, which is the activity generators. And activity generators could be other shopping, employment generation, and that's the one, if I was working on a strategic plan, that's the one we're lacking the greatest on. Because if we have more activity generation, it'll help make up for the fact that we don't have population, because we can draw people from other areas because they want to be here. In this whole discussion point, when I think about it, part of our issue also has we need to get to a place where people want to get off of, what's the exit number, 46? No, it's not 59, right?
46.
People want to get off of exit 46 because they know exit 46 is a place that they want to shop and dine. Part of our issue isn't just on our side of the highway. Part of our issue is to create the improvements that we're making with the connectivity will help people say, oh, it's a nicer looking place, and that type of thing. It's a step in the process. But we need to start working with New Haven in terms of what's happening over there, because there needs to be create synergy there. So I know it was kind of a long answer to get to trying to get a handle on what you're grappling with there, Scott, is that if I was to put my focus on the biggest area is we need to figure out what types of activity generators can we recruit to come to Woodbridge, and where can they be, where can they fit, and start working against that list. And so, sorry to go on for kind of...
Well, yeah, my response would be citing a Duncan is a little bit, probably not what I'm thinking about as our plan, about how do we become a site for Duncan. I'm thinking about...
that wasn't the point, Scott.
Well, no, but what I meant was citing a business. I'm talking about creating the community that supports that business. And so I think Duncan's, you're coming in, or whatever, your retail stores are coming in and say, where's that traffic pattern? Where are my numbers? Where are my 3 legs of the stool and stuff? I'm sort of talking about our growth as a community and saying, look, if we can develop this area and grow, we've had a population that's basically been stable we've been stuck for 30 years. And you can say it's gone up or it's gone down, but basically it's been 9,000, 10,000, whatever it is, people for 30 years. And we're built out in single-family large things. We have opportunities to change that if we wanted to. And if we don't want to, we don't do it when we haven't done it. But, so I see it as a little bit different than citing the retail business to come in with the existing traffic pattern. I say...
They're not going to want to come here unless there's
create the traffic pattern.
They're not going to want to come here unless there's an activity of other reasons to come here. I'll give you another different example.
Oh, no, but-
If we recruited, let's just say, in a wild dream here.
Mhm.
You ever hear of Treehouse? Okay. Anyone ever heard of Treehouse? Okay. It's a massive, it's like an Amazon building that's a brewery, okay? It's in the middle of nowhere, okay? But guess what? People go to this place because of what they've created there. If you had something like that that came to Woodbridge, that'd be an activity generator, okay? That would bring people here, plus it would also bring a lot of employees still, okay? So that's kind of where,
As I say, there are definitely communities that get built and they put retail and housing together and they build those communities.
Yep.
And we see plenty of those examples. So citing a particular retail business, they're gonna come in, Dunkin', I don't think Dunkin's model is to make sure that they build the housing so those people
No.
will buy the coffee. They probably look for where the people are to buy the coffee. And what I'm suggesting-
actually, they were considering, we could have had Dunkin' Donuts in Woodbridge where Saloon is, however, there was a
was
Panera.
territorial dispute.
Or was it Panera?
Then it was yeah.
No,
Jim
not
said
not
that's a
there,
different
not there.
story,
no.
maybe.
But all I'm saying is, I think if we come up with a vision, rather than becoming a destination for some event or some, if we create that community and that vibrancy, and if we do it where we want to do it, that's where I see our growth from our strategic plan.
Well,
And so I think it's housing and I think it's retail development, because when you have people that come, they're gonna need to buy food and entertainment and school supplies and all sorts of stuff. And they're gonna need the businesses to do that, and if they're near where they're living, but that requires growth, and our population has not grown. And so, it's a different model to try to, I don't know how you get Dunkin' to come into our town if, or off the highway.
is the goal for us, my glasses are in the car.
Need reading
Is
glasses?
the goal, do we have a goal of creating this strategy? Like,
Well, it's in these two documents.
but literally pen to paper on, like, here's what the vision is. We see growth to come from X, Y, Z. Not what we're gonna do, but like, the bullet point of what we do is to create this strategy for economic development strategy for the town of Woodbridge. Right? And if we're gonna do that, we can chat about that, but I really think we need a focus session to do that. Like, and that's a fun process, but that's like a workshop.
Looking at where on Terry's sheet, number 5, she's got interdepartmental collaboration for growth in housing by, she gives a date. Looking at that, and to Scott's point before,
Yeah.
we come up with a game plan to attack this goal. One, I would say, is we should go to the Board of Selectmen and say, we want your feedback, what you would like to see as for economic development within the business district or otherwise, as a starting point. And then we can kind of finesse that and then go out and see it.
Is that a starting point for us?
I think it could be.
Yeah, if there is a vision already, let's
Right.
work from that.
Yeah.
But great, but we need to know what that is.
So give us a little bit of your guidance. We can take, like you say, take a session, a work session, and just kind of spitball this stuff, right? Whiteboard it all. Say, this is what we want to
Yes.
see.
And the town planner made the comment, so this isn't coming just from me, but the largest taxpayers are gonna be your housing taxpayers. Your multifamily, your large housing communities. Those are gonna be your big tax generators. It's not gonna be your retail establishment. It's not gonna be, you're not gonna diversify this town's grand list and by having a few Starbucks or Paneras. You're gonna get it by the housing that goes in with that vibrant community. And that's where it is, you can, like D'Amato said, if you go to any community, the largest taxpayers, you put 100 units in, that's a $50 million investment. You're not gonna get that kind of tax revenue out of a coffee shop. or the 7th coffee shop. We had 7 down there, I think. Chris Dickerson once said we had 7 coffee shops at one point down. And, you know, we're not going to diversify our economic database, our economic base with that kind of stuff. It's going to be this combined growth strategy. If we do choose to do one, it's going to be that growth strategy that combines people and businesses and community creation. That's growth, as opposed to a couple of more retail shops. That's not going to help us for economic development. It's just a different thing, in my opinion.
So if we were to, going back to this like process, if we were to get input for selectmen, then we could draft something, have a little work session. We could think about that work session, like, is that us? Or do we invite others to that? Or like planner, or would we want to come up with a draft ourselves and shop it around, get some input from representatives from the other committees, then figure out, I'm spoiling here, but then figure out like getting input from the community. How do we do that? I mean, it's not like, hey, here's our strategy, the town's gonna change tomorrow. Like, you know, this is a longer term thing, but we're still saying we wanna get the input. But is that a step? Because we talk about getting input from, and cross collaboration from the other committees. Maybe this is an opportunity for us to kind of start doing that. They come to our session, or we have another session here where we invite them and we share it with them. I don't know.
So are you asking for, I said you, I agree with
Good.
everybody. Asking for recommendations for what to put here? Like what, I want to put a Gap, I want to put McDonald's, I want to put, is that what the conversation is right now? Like what specifically to put in Woodbridge? And ask the Board of Selectmen and people that question?
I would
Is
say,
that what I'm hearing?
from my standpoint, I would say no.
Right.
Right.
Good.
It's broader than
From
that.
my
Yeah,
standpoint,
much broader.
from my standpoint, from what I went through before, our biggest issue is the lack of employment generation and people that bring people here. And I would make a list of all the possible operations that would create that for us, because as much as we may have enough these coffee shops and this and that, what I'm concerned about is we generate these businesses that come to town and then they turn over because they don't make it because
there's no
there's
demand.
not enough activity to keep them viable.
Correct.
And part of the discussion I had with a number of the business people that I visited with, I said, look, you didn't open up Chick-fil-A in Norwalk on Connecticut Avenue next to Wegmans, ShopRite, Stop and Shop, and Super Walmart, and off of 95, and you just open the doors and you're doing great, okay? You got to do guerrilla marketing here because it's a limited opportunity. You really have to work it here because we're not generating all that extra activity for them. So that would be, you know, I'm not sure if we ask the residents, so what would you like? A lot of times people, they're going to put down things that floats their boat but may not work in that way. We need to generate more activity for them and get more people. I mean, the reality now that Toll Brothers has built the 70 homes that are there, that's helping those businesses in that area, okay? Because there's more
But I will
customers
say that,
around
Bob,
them.
we had an opportunity to put 150 units down there, and we opted for 75. And some of the business community had spoke favorably about putting 150 units down there rather than the 75 because it would help for traffic. So,
The original proposal that
Correct.
was, that,
And so-
and the guy wanted to do 2 phases and that was a whole nightmare because, whatever. That's history.
no, it was, no, it wasn't a nightmare, but so some of the businesses spoke to saying a little bit higher density, a little bit more family oriented rather than 50, you know. I'm not saying it's not a lovely development, I'm not saying the people, everything's great, but we need to, some of the businesses spoke about, we had an opportunity, the businesses down there, we had an opportunity to put 150 units down there, we didn't.
Well,
and so what
Scott timed that right there.
Right.
So that got approved for 137 units. And then the developer came back and he wanted to phase it. And one of the phases was there was going to be a little park and shopping and retail. But he wanted to come back and phase and only build the retail, or build the housing, and maybe build what we really wanted later on. And the town said, no, that's not what you got approved for. And that's why that didn't move forward. And obviously it was during a downtime in the economy. So I just want to make sure anyone that's listening, everyone knows what the facts were of that, what took place there.
Well, again, it goes to the density and the 75 families down there. And I think the 75 residences has been, anything helps, right? Anything helps. But to get the traffic, more than 75 is better. Not necessarily there, somewhere. But, you know.
You know, those homes are probably twice as expensive as the ones that we're going to go in.
You mean for taxation? Oh, yeah, there's no question that when you're dealing with a 55-plus community and very expensive homes, it's a big tax provider, and there's no question of that.
And they
that
made their,
draws-
and they,
But in terms of
It's why-
employment, in terms of the
Yeah.
things you were talking about on the three legs of the stool,
Yep.
and in terms of traffic, and in terms of employment and job creation, it's not that part of economic development, right? It's good, it's all good, but it's not maybe what you want to see in a growth strategy for economic development. Unless that's what your strategy is, to build that
Well,
everywhere, I don't know.
that would have been residents, and they would have been going somewhere else unless we would, when I talk about the employment generation, I'm talking about places where people are actually coming to work at places that are right here in Woodbridge and supporting our businesses and also contributing to the grand list.
Right, but I'm just saying, there's no businesses in that development.
No.
But this sounds like a growth strategy, like for the town, like to go back to like, what is this?
Mhm.
Right? It's not to say we want more donut shops or we want better place to buy jeans or whatever, but more is it looking at development of like the EDC strategic growth plan for Woodbridge, and it would chart out where we see the growth coming, right? So where in Woodbridge, business district, potential other options, right? And the types of businesses, when we should chart it, what the heck should this thing include, with the purpose of it being so we have a starting point for how to like proactively build, right? So we can start, because we've talked before about haven't done a lot of proactive outreach, and we can do some proactive outreach when there's businesses that come that are of interest, or if they fit our growth strategy, we have an incentive plan to support them. Like, that's the purpose of what we're talking about. I'm just trying to put the pieces together. Does that sound right? Like, because maybe it does. We're not the first economic development committee. Like, there's got other ones from neighboring towns. Is there something that others have? Our friends, New Haven or Orange or something that maybe would help us? I don't know. Just thought.
I don't know the numbers on Quarry Walk, but certainly it's something when you drive by it, you see some sort of growth there.
Yeah.
Whether it's successful, how it did it.
What's the quarry well?
So Quarry Walk is a
67
residential
Oxford.
community that,
Oh, it's Oxford?
they-
Oh, yeah.
you know that
Oh,
one?
yeah.
So it's got residential, right, people living there, it's got businesses, it's got, to me, it looks like growth. I don't know the success of it, I don't know if it's something you model or something,
Like
but
if-
it certainly looks like growth to me. And, is that an economic development growth strategy that Terry talks about? To come up with one is to have a growth strategy document, is to come up with something that we want to create some sort of growth. Is that growth to us? Or is growth, what is growth to us?
I would agree that Quarry Walk is an example of growth. No question about it. Right. Full stop. Something like that here. Route 67 is, if you looked at the traffic numbers, which I have not, but you can imagine 67 right there, Route 8, well, if you keep going up, you're up to 84, right? You've got a much higher concentration of traffic going through there. Plus you brought in, to your point, the housing aspect of it, which is large, I think, by looking at it. I mean, I don't know how many units, but I would say several hundred.
I'm guessing 300 or 400.
The restaurants that they put in, you've got healthcare, you have grocery store, whatever else. But where is that traffic flow here?
May not be in the business district, as we know today.
I don't think really Woodbridge has it.
Well, I mean, certainly the corridor between the valley and New Haven. We have town-owned 155 acres with utilities. So certainly that's in that corridor, that's in the Oxford corridor.
But
Right, that's kind of like connecting, so that's there. I'm not, again, I'm just saying is that we have those opportunities to come up with a growth strategy. And that's one, what does growth look like for this town?
That is what this should define, right?
What-
So
what does
that,
growth look like
that
for this
works
town?
for there, if it works, I don't know, but that is one, that is growth for, and that's there. Is that what we're saying we wanna go after here? Not necessarily opening like an outlet of Yale or a health sciences company or who the heck knows what, like, that's another thing, right? Like having a business to employ people, who the heck knows, like what it could be. But there's different versions, right? So I don't think we need to say the answer isn't, I think there's work to be done before we can get to, we want that, right? We need to do the building blocks to get there. What does growth look like? What fits with the town of Woodbridge, our strengths, weaknesses, where we want to be, and what makes sense for us. And here's the 1, 2, 3, 4 things we're looking for. And it may end up being, oh, that's a perfect thing. But I don't think I don't know that we can, it's going to be as easy as saying, oh, we did the work and we want this circle. We're going to probably want some things, but we could look at some different options. And it's also not up to us, right? It's not like we can dream it up and it's just going to fall in our lap. We need to attract the business.
I think I'm going to chime in here. Getting antsy sitting in my seat listening to this. I want to go back to what started the conversation. Because I want to do stuff that actually makes progress right now. The incentives. Yes, we need incentives. We need incentives. We need a summary of incentives now that the EDC develops that is something we can start to offer somebody. They're not going to be specific. They're going to be, hey, we have these potential opportunities in Woodbridge for incentives. Maybe that'll start bringing somebody in. That is something we can do now. Again, they won't be specific for housing development or some big business for a 30-year deferral of taxes, whatever it is. But something that we can give to the Board of Selectmen now that says, we want to do this so we can start talking to people and say, hey, Woodbridge is open for business. And then the next step after that is to refine that and come up with more specific and targeted incentives for whatever we choose we want in Woodbridge. So I want to do stuff that, and when I say we want to do stuff, I'm talking to EDC. I still am of the opinion that EDC should be driving everything and making the recommendation to other commissions and the Board of Selectmen. So we should do that now and then follow it on with more detail. We're talking a lot about the strategy and talking about what can come into this town. We should never, for the short term, be talking about what we can bring into this town in terms of specific things. As far as our strategy goes, I look at it a little bit differently.
What do you mean by that?
Which part?
What you said, we should never talk about what we could bring into the town.
Like, we shouldn't, right now, our conversation shouldn't be centered around, I want what Oxford has. I want Yale here. I want Dunkin' Donuts here. I want Trader Joe's here. Specific things, we should hold off on that conversation until we understand the canvas we're working.
That's,
with.
Chatty, just sorry to interrupt you. Even though I mentioned different businesses, the theme of the discussion that I was trying to make was
I'm with you.
the activity
I'm with you.
generation thing.
I agree with you. I agree with your points completely. All that stuff that Dunkin' Donuts talked about, we don't have that, and we need that. And as far as what is our growth, that's not the question I'd be asking. What does our growth look like? What I would say is, right now we have, I forgot the exact numbers, 6% of our revenue comes from our businesses. I forgot the exact number. And 94% comes from residential. EDC's goal should be, our tax base should look like 80-20. And I'm just picking a number. I don't know what the right numbers are. 20 of it should come from business, 80 should come from residential. That is where we start. To get to 20%, then we start looking at what does Woodbridge look like today? And that's kind of what I was thinking when I was coming up with the goals, and I'm pretty sure I didn't capture everything I wanted to capture. And that is when we start looking at what we have today in terms of businesses, industries, people, population, to define what's here. And then we get into the next conversation of what can we support given what we look like. And if we can't support anything given what we look like, then how do we change, this is sensitive words, how do we change what we look like without changing what we look like? You know what I'm saying? So we can attract whatever it is we want to attract. Now, in parallel to that, we have the incentives thing. We need to do the communication thing. We need to have the marketing brochure of what Woodbridge is today. That way we have something that, in parallel with the main body of work that we're doing, we can still go out to businesses to kind of talk up Woodbridge and talk to anybody that may be looking for something. Maybe somebody does look for a spot like Wheelers, is looking for a spot like Wheelers right now. But I want to go back to what we have today, because if we talk about, and Scott, I know you're in favor of housing, and housing is a economic development tool, but we have to understand where we are today. And I don't see us doing that right now. Talking about what we're going to bring here without knowing what we can support is a futile conversation, I think. So,
Which I would say that if you're gonna get to your 80-20, chances are in that 20 is gonna be the 4+ housing developments. It's that 20%, that raising from whatever the number is, 6 to 20, is not gonna come from pure business is coming
No,
in.
no.
It's gonna come probably, and we can confirm this with some of the planners, but we've heard Mike say that, you're gonna find your largest taxpayers that diversify your grand list, because housing is commercial. That's the diversification of the grand list. So when you suggest going from 6 to 20, you are suggesting housing, because that's the commercial driver in the 20. And I'm not saying it's Cory Walk, but I'm saying it's the community of housing and businesses. That 20's not gonna come for us. We say, oh, it's gonna be great. We're gonna get rid of all this reliance on the residential houses up in the residential neighborhoods, and we're gonna get all these businesses to come in. Bob's just saying that's not gonna happen. And that's not gonna be the 20. What's gonna drive it is the 4+ units. And because those are like the $50 million projects. Those are the ones that are gonna put you in, those are gonna add to your grand list and diversify it.
but those aren't,
You may not want them, but that's what would do it.
but those aren't our businesses.
Those are businesses.
A housing unit is not a business.
It's not on the residential grand list. That's when you diversify that grand list. That's in the commercial side. Dale has said that to us. Everybody has said that to us. That's in the commercial side.
So an apartment complex
It is
gets-
on the commercial side, right? So
Okay,
that's where the
that's
growth
fine.
comes
Yeah,
from.
that's, okay, so that's fine, that's out of my swim lane, I guess.
So if you're saying,
And that's
I don't
fine.
want housing, but I want to somehow get 20% of retail businesses with no customers, then you've got to figure out how to attract,
Yeah, no,
I guess,
no.
people in off the exit ramp.
No,
But I
no,
don't see it.
I never said I don't want housing.
Yeah.
housing is a part of our solution. It's going to be part of the solution, whether it's, mixed use housing down in the business district, whether it's something that shows up on the country club or somewhere else in town. Housing is part of the
So
equation.
Scott,
But if we did
kinda
just
to your-
let's look at the numbers.
Let's use Quarry Walk as
Let's
the
just use the
example.
numbers for 1 sec. If we have a what, 5? What's our grand list? 1.5?
Yeah, 1.6, 1.7, I think, somewhere around there.
So we need 300 million of new investment, 350 million of new investment to diversify our grand list that's not in the residential side. So how do we get, just start to talk about that? Where do you get those chunks of 350 million? We may want, we could try to incentivize them by giving them tax freezes if they do the improvements. But how do we get them to come in and say, build something here for $350 million that you can find economically viable? And housing is certainly going to be a component within that 350, in my opinion. It doesn't have to be not what you want, but when people say, oh, why can't we make it look like Bath, England? Well, that's 40 units per acre. But, so we have all those options in front of us. But I think it's to get that 20% or to get that 350 million, it's gonna have to have a housing component in it, and it's gonna have to have a growth component in our population. That's just my sense of it.
And that's
that we're
fine.
not gonna get a Coliseum to come in and that's gonna be our driver.
And that's fine. And talking about, I want a 100-unit development is not the conversation I want to have right now. It's just like I don't want to have a conversation of I want to put in 2 Dunkin' Donuts or whatever else. The mix of what goes in is not the conversation I think I want to have right now. The conversation is what we need to do to make those numbers look better for our town, to alleviate the burden on what everybody was complaining about just a year ago in terms of our valuation. Alleviate the burden on the residents and hopefully disperse some of that on our business community. So what the mix-up of whatever's coming into the town is not the conversation I want to have right now. Sorry, let me rephrase that. My input is that that's not the conversation we should be having right now. The conversation we should be having right now is, again, what does the town look like and what can it support given all of the things we have today, given the traffic we have today, given what's the New Haven area look like right over the border, what does the Naugatuck area look like, what does the Ansonia area, and all that stuff that can feed our area. That is a conversation I think we should be having. Right now, an academic, data-driven discussion of what does Woodbridge look like today? And where are the holes? And then we fill it in with, if we want to get to 20% again, the number's just made up. If we want to get to 20%, there's an opportunity for housing that will also bring in whatever else, the ancillary type business that would support that. Or it's hey, if we can get Yale to build a cancer section, cancer area, whatever, that would bring in a whole bunch of other things. People, need for housing, other businesses that support that type of business or whatever, industry, whatever you call it. That's the conversation we'd have next. Again.
Can I spitball for 1 second? What would happen, just to spitball, just like see if it sticks? What would happen if you said, okay, the Economic Development Commission wants a request for proposal. We want you to invest in our town. We want you to bring in $350 million. What can we do for you? And what would be the thing you would build for us for $350 million? What do you see as viable? We do a request for expression of interest from an economic, I'm just spitballing, being silly, but maybe what you're saying is, okay, let's not politicize this and have a preconceived notion, and just say, okay, maybe we'll find that all the cancer centers are gonna call us, or maybe we're gonna find all the housing people are gonna call us. But we maybe would learn something to say, and we're gonna give you free taxes for 20 years, right? Because we want you to build it.
So
I'm just saying,
great example. Great question.
and so they come in and they say, what really makes sense today is a cancer center, or what really makes sense today is housing. We'll know, and we'll get it from people that don't have the kind of thing that you're trying to avoid is the discussion about which way we're going. Is that a spitball thing?
Great question, great scenario. If you worked for that company, what would be the first thing you did? If you work for the company that's answering the RFQ, what would be the first thing you do? You were told by Woodbridge, I want you to build me $350 million of development.
Because so what are you gonna do for me?
No.
Yeah.
First thing you would do is there potential for me to spend $350 million and get my money back?
Right.
Right, it just makes sense,
So
right?
what does that analysis look like?
Yeah.
As that business president, what would you do?
Does it have access to labor? Does it have open land? Does it have commuting patterns? Does it have all those things? The kinds of things you'd look at to either, some of our locations, you look at all that, sure.
That's our job. We're that company.
There you go. I couldn't agree with you more.
We're that company.
I couldn't agree with
and
you more.
We got to.
So it's going to be our leadership. It's going to be our leadership of the town.
That's how I see it.
So then, what do we want to do, guys? What do we want to be a leader of this town to tell the town what we need to do and what's viable, what would be sustaining? Are we going to be that leader? I'll start that conversation as I think it's going to have a pretty significant population growth component in it, in my opinion. It's not going to be a concert hall that has a concert on Saturday nights.
Maybe, or again, hypothetically speaking, we attract some large entity, whatever that is, or multiple large entities that set up shop and bring in tax revenue and bring in other potential businesses, but the people live at the top of New Haven, or the people live in Bethany, or the people live in Orange or Ansonia or Derby, and they come here. You're not wrong. Maybe it is housing, but maybe the housing is somewhere else, and we have the driver for that traffic.
And meanwhile, you have New Haven talking about the innovation pathway and putting the housing in Woodbridge.
Yeah. I was on that call with you that we were talking about before.
Listen,
I-
we're gonna have to
Scott,
negotiate that, I guess.
Scott, I love the idea of sending out a request for proposal.
Just a spitball thing to make it-
Or
to make
letter
it-
say, I mean, what it comes down to is, it probably needs to be a company who's either looking to relocate or they're expanding greatly and they're looking for a space. The one thing I really wish we can also kind of move on with the incentive thing is not always assume they're paying nothing, okay? Let's start from, as they're looking to expand and go somewhere, what they're gonna look at is what are their options that are available to her.
course.
And if our option is more competitive than in another town,
Of course.
okay, so yeah, I don't like to negotiate from saying, you don't have to pay me anything to, I'm gonna try to get something from you. I like to start from, this is like,
Well,
you know.
Bob, I think that goes without saying,
Okay.
and we've all,
Yeah.
I think that goes without saying.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not like it used to be in that statute that was, if you make a $200,000 improvement, you can have a 7-year tax freeze on that $200,000 improvement. That's not the incentive anymore. And all of our incentives, we don't have control of our incentives when it comes to taxation. That comes from the state. We can't do that. We don't have that. That's not, taxing is done by the state. And so the state gives us the ability to make those incentives. So it would be nice if we could say that, and we'll decide how we want to create these incentives. But when it comes to the property tax, that's going to be from the state.
There are certainly some
So-
incentive programs that had been discussed in prior ADCs, going back to 2020, 2021.
But they were before these changes.
They were. But to your point about what we already have and what's been discussed, we haven't. I mean, I have hard copies, so certainly something that could be disseminated and look at, then take some of your knowledge that you've got based on the changes and put that forward.
And Bob, the reason I'm saying to start, I always like to start with a meteor hitting out of the sky or from an extreme position, because you can then see where you bring it back to. And obviously, that's as far as you could go. 30 years with a tax freeze from a baseline tax. So if you took a piece of property that had virtually no taxes, you would have 30 years of not deferred, but, frozen taxes. That might be, we would certainly probably get somebody to come in, if we did that. But we may be able to do it and raise some money and phase it in, all those kinds of things that some of the different towns are doing, with phasing it in and that sort of thing. It's for the first 7 years of development, then it ratchets up, like the big towns do. So I think those things are available to us if we truly do want to grow. I'm not suggesting we give it away, but I think I think we can grow. I think that's an incentive that works. I think it is one that works. Would work.
Just one other point, I don't know if it kind of ties into this discussion a little bit. Mr. mentioned about some of the other boards and commissions, which ties into the housing. I did attend the housing meeting the other night, and I think it was great that they had that, where we went on the tour for the affordable housing and all the different commissions were there. I spent a lot of time speaking with your wife on that trip, and we were kind of bouncing ideas all over the place. I think for a lot of the things that we're doing here, that we're working in a silo and these other commissions are working in a silo, I think we really need to be pushing the Board of Selectmen to somehow put together a regular monthly meeting where a representative from each group, because as I sat in that housing meeting, I'm like, I almost was like, boy, I'd like to participate in this discussion. And in the beginning, I could have made public comment, but I wanted to hear the meeting, okay? And, there was one person sitting there who probably is fairly new to the housing thing, but the guy's done his homework, which is Dave Lober. He's looked at a lot of the incentives, and it's like, look, he's not spent his life there, but I know Dave, he spends a lot of time doing research and talking about a lot of the incentives there that are available and that type of thing. And it's just, and I actually called him the next day and talked a little bit about what I saw at that meeting. We need to push for that to happen, because synergistically, what we're trying to do here and what housing's trying to do and what Coopop's trying to do, because they're trying to push to get some of these pieces of land, and I watched a number of those meetings, to move along to get more affordable housing. And then when we were on that trip, we learned some of the ways that it could be done where we could do it here in Woodbridge. And then we're bouncing back and forth, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, our existing property owners are probably not the ones that are going to do it. We got to find the people that will do it, matching up to the properties and these are all the ideas that are being thrown out. But if we don't have a regular conduit to have those discussions with these other groups, they come back, to, obviously we're not going to have everyone from each commission meeting together where there's 50 people in a room. It's just, you rotate who goes in. We're not going to make progress. And plus, I guess that's a request I make from my standpoint, is that maybe if everyone agrees, to go back to Mika and the Board of Selectmen, say, can you formalize that process? I had a discussion with him about, after that trip, how much I learned from that and how much synergy there was from the different people that were there. I think that's something we should push for.
Yeah, sometimes I toyed with this in my career. I retired a number of years ago, but I always said, gosh, I want to have the authority to do, I was at Yale University, which is an organization that was really funky. And you didn't sort of get the authority, you sort of just developed the authority in your position. So you didn't say, well, you have the authority because that's in your job description. You sort of came over time. So I think while it is good, I think, we could make a decision that we choose ourselves, that we have enough interest in this, in doing what the town wants us to do, and have it come out what the town wants us to do. But we take a leadership role, and I think leadership is created by being a leader, as opposed to necessarily, going to them. And so I think we can decide, do we want to, as a group, be a leader in this process? They constantly see us as a group, as a leadership group, making these decisions. If it's not going to be the Board of Selectmen passing ordinances that allow these tax incentives, but they always see us asking them to do it. They see us, we could choose to become that kind of active and not say, let's wait for the selectmen or
Well,
the other
that's,
leaders.
our
to-
leadership position here is to make the request for a formal group to meet on a monthly basis to move along.
But that's my point about saying it's gotta be, you know what I
Yep.
mean?
Well, right now,
Leadership is
Scott-
created by leaders, you know?
Scott, Mike,
And-
the alternative right now is for each of us to attend these meetings separately, sit there, and only be able to participate in the 3-minute public comment. And that's not, I don't think that that's as productive as a formal meeting of a combined group of boards and commissions that can bounce around ideas together and go back to their commissions or boards with those ideas.
And granted, our charter doesn't give us any real leadership authority, we make no decisions, you know?
Right.
It's the scope and the mission, so if we focus on trying to get that authority, that's probably what I'm saying is doesn't really work in my experience in my career, is that you just have to sort of become a leader.
I guess I'll ask
And
the
if we all
question,
wanna
I
do
guess
it.
I'll ask the question, to the rest of the members here. Is my idea a crazy idea or something we should do?
It's the last bullet on your page 1.
Yeah.
So, no, not a crazy idea. Whether, yes, I agree with you. Yes, I agree with him. We should be taking the leadership role.
Yeah.
I don't want to ask anybody else in the town for anything. When I say anybody, I mean the other commissions. But yes, we should be, as a town, and I would expect this of the board. I would expect the board of selectmen to want this. They're bringing everybody in, and they're having regular discussions. Now, if the board of selectmen chooses to do that, or we choose to do that because they're tied up with other things, either way is fine with me as long as it occurs. Scott, to your point, nothing stops us from doing anything. We're not the decision makers. We are, just like every other commission, we are the recommenders. Right? We recommend you do this. And board of selectmen takes it from there. Our job is to make those recommendations, not to ask anybody
Well,
what
they
those
do, right.
recommendations are.
Selectmen are gonna do ordinances and the kinds of things that operationalize some of the tax stuff. And then zoning is gonna do the land use stuff.
We make the recommendations of incentives, zoning, businesses, whatever we've all been talking about here for the past 2 hours. Somebody else makes a decision.
Just because we would be part of a group like that and coordinate all these things together, get things to get moving a little bit quicker, that doesn't mean we don't have to be leaders of this whole process either. So I think it's a great idea.
We should be the leaders to getting to that recommendation and not asking somebody else, what should our recommendation be, or what do you think of this recommendation? Let's just do it.
Okay. I move that we act on Bob's suggestion and approach the Board of Selectmen. Could you state that again?
The,
Hold on one second.
Oh, he's got it in the notes.
the Board of Selectmen formalize that combined boards and commission group into a regular meeting group that happens on a monthly basis to move along, synergize the ideas that are happening in all these different boards and commissions to make it happen.
That's my motion.
I mean, obviously it was under housing, but, you know, it ties into with everything we're doing.
Right.
I'll second it for discussion.
The motion will be, EDC recommends to the Board of Selectmen to formalize the combined meeting on a monthly basis of boards and commissions to discuss current issues.
Or economic development.
Well, it could be housing, and really,
It could be,
Yeah. To discuss
Right.
their being each commission's I don't know what the words are.
Current initiatives or efforts to progress,
Yeah.
discuss current priorities and
Yes.
opportunities to synergize.
I like that. Opportunities to synergize.
Good.
it's funny because it's gonna it started out with housing, but it's gonna touch other areas. It's gonna be interesting how that evolves. You know? I mean, I could just see from that trip, different people, someone at TP and ZO speaking to someone from housing. I spent a lot of time speaking to your wife, and I could see where, like, she had an idea, but it's like, oh, wait a minute, I may need you to help me get it executed from your, and, you know, we're bouncing ideas back and forth. They were like, yeah, that's how we could get that done. And, I mean, I asked a question during the lunch session, geez, has the town ever taken options on properties? You know, like say it's a property that we know the owner is never going to become an affordable housing operator, but whether the town takes an option where they then lease it, okay, or they flip it to someone who's actually going to do the right thing with the property, because we know the current operator, that's not the business they're in, and that they're not going to be in it. So, and how do you get, who's the best person to have that discussion, you know, with those people? Because I was just sitting back and thinking that Mr. Jones, who owns a property on 100 Main Street, is going to decide he's going to be an affordable housing operator now. It's not what he's done. It's like asking the cardiologist to do lung surgery. It's not what he's going to do. Yeah.
So we have the motion. I'm going to read it back just so everybody is clear. Thank you, Bob. So the formal wording will be Economic Development Commission's moves to recommend Board of Selectmen formally establish monthly meeting of boards and commissions to meet and coordinate, discuss opportunities to synergize on current issues affecting the town. Everybody good with the wording on that? Good enough. That was seconded by
For discussion,
Scott.
for discussion.
Right,
Yeah.
for discussion. So we're into discussion.
I think it's a good idea.
I agree.
I don't oppose. I don't know that that's the forum to get us, you know, some sort of consensus on where we're going. I think, you know, I watched the technical advisory committee for repurposing of the country club. And I watched the sort of who gets on and who doesn't get on, and is it the chair, is it the so forth, and I'm not suggesting you would be bad on, you would be the best person on it. But what I'm saying is, you know, and then who's got this and who's...
You could have taken that role. No problem.
Well, no, that was, I think at that time it was Scott Burdell.
It was, and then I just, by default.
Got it at the end. So, and then, so I guess what I'm seeing is, I hear you that it's a frustration to come up with consensus and that we need to get people talking and communicating. And I think a lot of commissions feel that pressure, but I don't know that this is coming from us, you know, I just don't know if that's the right way, so I'm
not sure I'm following what you're trying to tell us.
I don't see putting together a group representative of the various commissions to talk about current issues in the town is getting us to my mission here for economic development. I guess that's my stance on that, is I don't see having a group of 10 people that we gotta make sure we have sustainability and conservation. Don't forget recreation, don't forget EDC, don't forget, you know, and then putting them all on, talk about current issues. It's not gonna get me where I think I wanna get. I don't think, you know, are we all going in the same direction where we want to set up a municipal development authority and give it some autonomy to do economic development? You know, it would be great if we were working towards that, but I think that vehicle is not going to get us to that kind of stuff. So for that reason, I'm a no, not because talking is not a good idea, but
I don't think the intent of those collaboration sessions are to perform economic development committee activities. I think they're there for the commissions just to kind of talk about what's going on. So I think we're stepping outside of our swim lane a little bit by telling the Board of Selectmen, hey, this is kind of really a good idea because you should have all the commissions do this together. Does it help us in any way? Maybe, maybe not, but it's not really there to help us. It's there to help the town and have everybody collaborate, like Bob was saying, about something that may be going on or some
It might
potential
help us.
opportunity.
With collaboration and synergies, we've sat through a few of these meetings, the handful that I've been a part of, where we've been speculating, what's TPZ doing? Well, I think they might do this. Well, what if they do this? So maybe it could help us if we actually are talking. So I don't, again, outside of our lanes, but I would say it's not about talking about current issues. We don't need more I mean, it's talking about priorities and opportunities to combine efforts, like, and synergize, right? So, I don't know, maybe it's out, but I think it's all in how that discussion is facilitated.
I think it's important to certainly collaborate amongst, looking back and reading this again, I think perhaps monthly might be too much. Say quarterly.
Yeah, quarterly's fine.
You could say
Quarterly's
regular
fine.
and let them make,
Yeah.
make the decision.
I think regularly then would be a fair,
I mean, right now.
would you accept that
Yes.
change?
Yeah, friendly amendment.
Friendly amendment.
The biggest thing we're faced right now is obviously with the housing and affordable housing, which is really kind of what that group would be talking about. And obviously, because of the 2 to 9 in the business district, we're involved there. The alternative, I would see, to this motion would be, we'd have to have ex officio members of all these different boards and commissions, which means each one of us would have to then, okay, you're doing TP&Z, you're doing CUPOP, you're doing, and I'm not sure if that's going to be the most productive way of using our time. I think that a quarterly with that group could be much more efficient. And to take from that, I know that right now, someone who's on conservation is an ex officio member. I think with CUPOP, if I got it right, I may have it backwards. It might be the other way around in that way. So that's, they start doing it, it doesn't work. I mean, I guess I got excited from that one meeting, like, wow, we're all just like, wow, look at how much we're talking about here and we're sharing and how productive it could be and that type of thing. So
You had mentioned before, so we feel like we're in our silo, and they're in their silos, and getting us at least close to being on the same page on a lot of stuff, I think would be very, very helpful in getting everybody, not only us but other people, to move forward and make changes that are beneficial for the town.
I'll throw out something else that happened too. So we spent a whole special meeting and did a motion how to help contribute to what TP&Z needed. What was our sense? I mean, I had a conversation with somebody. I was at a meeting and I said, hey, how'd you guys make out with that? Oh, it was in our package. And I'm like, yeah, but did you talk about it? And I really didn't get a sense that the 2+ hours we spent there was other than it was in someone's package. And if that would potentially would have been a discussion, would be a discussion in this group. Hey, by the way, we spent time, are you guys talking about that? So there becomes some dialogue for that person who's on TP&Z to go back and more discussion. Because they weren't in our meeting, they really didn't get the whole, everything that was in there. And I'm not faulting them on that. It's, it's just, we sent a motion and they read it and okay. Didn't have really the color around it that someone could have provided. So that's part of what I see comes out of this.
Very well. Okay.
Yeah, and again, I would rather see our time focused on, I would rather see us as an EDC as a committed, deciding to become, and maybe it's not for everybody but to be really a group that becomes tight-knit, has developed a plan, has hashed it out amongst themselves, who have very different opinions, but have come across with what they feel is their economic growth strategy, and then becomes an EDC nuisance to every single commission that ever walked in Woodbridge. And we are, we've said this is, if we've been able to work it out with our different opinions, then we have something that should be done. And I would rather see us, that may take weekly meetings or, twice a week meetings to get that hammered out for that strategy and say, because we always have the ability to understand where other people are thinking. Maybe I think our time might be spent better than that in some large sort of collaboration session, with thoughts on the board.
Right. Fair enough. So we have a motion and a second.
Look for a
Further
second?
discussion? No, we already had it. With the friendly amendment, which is now Economic Development Commission, recommend Board of Selectmen formally establish regularly scheduled meeting of boards and commissions to meet, to coordinate, discuss opportunities, synergize, to synergize in current issues affecting the town. That was made initially by Rick. Scott seconded. I'm going to call the vote. Bob? We're going to call the vote.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I
Shona?
thought you gotta call everyone at the same time.
No, we'll
Okay.
go down since we're formalizing this.
Oh, from this?
Shona? Yeah. Rick?
Aye.
Scott?
Nay.
Chatty?
Aye.
I vote aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay. So on the goals, we've discussed a lot of this. I think I could take these notes, kind of summarize a little bit more, send this out, then hit the road running on it, and get to your point specifically of where are we now? What do we have now? Where are we going? And both you and Terry had made some recommendations on how to get there. So looking at the list, looking at the inventory, these are all things that we're going to be summarizing using the current list that we have. We're going to recirculate all of this. Rick is going to take the lead on it. And then when we bring in our 2 students with the voice program coming in September, we're going to integrate them into that process. Get to that point maybe in the next month to 2 months, realistically speaking, looking at 300 plus businesses that we've got and where we are. Get to that, let's call it for October, and then we can move forward from there. Fair enough? That's on that one.
That's one thing, yeah.
One. Continue working with the planner, we've discussed that. Collaboration, we hit that one tonight.
But the one thing I would suggest
sir.
is somehow take this and put it somehow in a calendar so we see each month we're looking what's coming up and the things we need to, because
Okay.
we're, based on us missing the last meeting, we're already a little behind on some of our dates already.
Right, I mean, obviously, these were
Yeah.
for discussion
The dates were
purposes.
just
We can move
No,
on ahead.
Targets. Yeah.
But I want to just check on that, how we supply that information to us where we can see it, whether it just be on a Google Calendar, or what's the right way to do it so we're not, so we are, I should say, in compliance with the rules.
Are you talking about Bob's recommendation about a
So if
schedule?
we're looking at the dates, granted, these dates you have are kind of arbitrary.
Yeah.
But realistic, most of them I would think. And if we were to kind of put that out, even on a timeline for ourselves, we can do it if it's a hard copy, if it's in a spreadsheet, however we think is going to be best to visualize it. So we can get to September 10th, check that off, right? And go that way.
So I think, Cliff,
But do it the right way.
each month, we're gonna need to look at that calendar and say, what did we do? What's coming up? Who's taking these items that are on the list, for the next 3 months, whatever happens to be, so we're all,
Yeah.
some is we're keeping score and we just gotta know the numbers, and others are like, okay, who's taking this? Otherwise, like, oh, we missed a date, who was supposed to do that?
Okay.
So, and first, we should get some kind of consensus to the goals, because these are
So I
just what
think
wrote
by
down, so-
summarizing this, kind of consolidating it somewhat between yours and Terry's, putting it out there, we can put it on the agenda for September to kind of vote on that formalized goals and somewhat of a timeline for us to meet them. Fair enough. with that for now. We can move on, see how far you want to get into the communications plan, or do you want to discuss?
Did you guys discuss it last time?
We did not, because we didn't have a meeting.
Well, it's 8:00. You tell me if we want to dive into it or go next week.
I think we could,
Is there something,
you got
There's
the,
a deck.
this deck that,
jeez, I completely
Sent
missed
it.
that.
Maybe resend it, and
Okay.
we can look at it, and then the next time we can come with thoughts and like, it's a draft of,
Of
and it is
course,
not
right.
based on a vision, it is based on Woodbridge as it is right now, right? Like, we would love to say, hey, we're building this and we want you to be a part of it. It's based on, like you're saying, here's what we're at right now, here's some of the messaging to support, and love everybody's input and kind of like, what would we do with this, next steps, but, I am not, I did not take feedback personally, so please.
I think it's a great start.
Yeah, I just, it's good.
Yeah.
Like I
And
said
looking at the
before,
numbers,
people-
Yeah.
it's exactly what you said. You want, actual numbers to look at and see. So it's, if you want to pass
Just
it
because
down.
I didn't do my homework doesn't mean we shouldn't have the discussion if everybody else is prepared to have it. So don't, just because I didn't do my homework, don't
I think
dismiss,
to your point,
That's what we
dismiss the
thought.
agenda point.
it's 8. So let's table it till October. I'll resend the
October.
September, excuse me. I will resend it tomorrow, so everyone has an opportunity to review, and we can hit that in September. Is everybody okay with tabling it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say I'm happy to take feedback between then, but I don't think that's how we can operate. We need
Yeah,
to
we
like,
can.
get here and
We can,
Through Tony
through
Mead?
you.
we can set, as long as it's not reply all,
Right.
we can send
Anyway.
feedback.
If anyone wants to, great. Otherwise, we'll discuss it.
Well, if it goes to you, Cliff, you can
Yeah,
sort it
that's
from
fine.
there.
So if we can do it that way.
Okay.
I'll send
Or
it
would it
out.
be Tony B?
Yeah, Tony is copied on it. When I send something out, I copy her on it for that purpose. Oftentimes, we don't get response from everybody.
Would this warrant a special meeting at all?
Certainly can.
I'm just
Yeah.
asking, I don't want to
Or if you want
push
to,
anything, but I'm in
Combine
favor
the
of
two.
I'm in favor of having
Yeah.
2 meetings a month
I mean,
because of the
the-
work we have to do in front of us.
reviewing the goals and formalizing that, and this could be a special meeting in itself.
Yeah,
okay?
because they're pretty good discussions that we need to have. I know it's asking
Thank you for that suggestion.
for people.
It was in the background, I was like, who's gonna be the bad guy to suggest it, but it's needed. I mean,
Okay.
Yeah, we got
No,
a lot
I
of
like
work.
having the focus sessions.
Yeah.
All right, so
This is multiple copies, right? I think I got the whole package. of
I
multiple
might have
copies.
made more than
Does
one. I
anybody-
don't know.
Anybody need more? I think I just got my.
It wasn't that.
I sent it to our secretary. I said, make some copies of this, please, because I was running around.
And
So I don't know
I'm
how
sorry.
many are there.
I'm sorry, I missed it. You worked hard on it.
Quite all right. So we will,
For our last meeting.
I'll
and
touch
then-
base with
Oh, I'm not.
Tony to look at the calendar, see availability for a special meeting in September to specifically go over our goals and the marketing and branding. Okay. Okay. Just a couple points I've got. Zoning, there's not too much right now that is affecting us. I do know that everything that they worked on to meet the deadline is something that is going to be workable, so it's not necessarily in stone. So they're, after reviewing
There is a, I might point out, there is a public hearing to change our zoning in the business district to residential. And that is, I believe, September 7th or so.
Say that again?
So there is a zone change that's been sought. I'm not, it affects business. So the outline had historically of our business district for our placemaking study and for our connectivity sort of had stopped at the hill, you know, at the topography change. As you go up Hazel Terrace, it sort of stopped at Hazel Terrace and up, and then you have these old two paper roads that go up there. And Bank Street kind of still continues up there, even though it's on Hazel Terrace, but Bank Street is still there. There's a paper, you know, road. Because Selden Plaza brought Bank Street up. But the long and short of it is that GB, I think it's still GB, not GBA, but GB or GBA, which is the same thing really, it's just an overlay on the GB. There is a couple of lots up there that want to keep in keeping with the residential neighborhood, so they're going to take those off the GB roster. The idea, the application is to take those off the GB roster and make those residential.
Just those little spots.
Yeah, change the zoning on those.
Sorry.
On those two. I don't know if it's for the whole area up there or just those two lots, but it's just something that's going on if you're talking about zoning.
Yeah, I'm
And you're
gonna
talking
look
about
for
zoning
it.
changes in
I didn't
business
see
districts.
it.
Yeah,
but
it's 2 lots, 3 acres. It's right next to the solar farm area and the Woodbridge land and the UI as it goes up there. And it sits above 18 Hazel, and, you know, it sits above Hazel Terrace on the top of the hill.
Okay.
So you got that top, and then you got that
There's a house or,
Crumb's Elbow. This is on Crumb's Elbow.
oh, okay.
So
Okay.
this is the 2 lots. Crumb's Elbow is, you go down Park and then Crumb's Elbow comes back. And then Crumb's Elbow, there's 2 lots, so I think it's about 3 acres. And it's a switch, and it's just saying, I caught it, I saw it. So we can, just so you're aware of it, it is a business district change to a residential change. I'm not saying anything good or bad about it, I'm just saying it's there when you're talking about zoning. But I don't know, it may have access to public water and public sewer in some respects.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Was that?
That's exactly it. 15 and 21 Crum Elbow
Correct.
from GB to residential A.
So we are
Okay.
changing some GBs to residential. I'm not saying it's good. But I mean, it's just, it does affect our business district.
Thank you, Scott.
Yep.
Something else of importance is I mentioned the voice program. They're having an orientation for the students and the boards. That's going to be on Friday, August 28th. Chad, you got that email from them? You're
yes.
on the list, so you,
Yep.
okay.
What time is that?
It's at 4 o'clock. And it's, we're going to have 2 students from Amity. We just have their first names. One is called, and I'm not certain if I'm pronouncing it right, but I want to say Eitan and Ethan. Along with that, we all received an email with regards to the town's youth protection policy. It's requested that you complete that and return it to the town clerk by September 1st. I submitted mine. I don't know if anyone else got a chance to. Okay. Some other exciting news. We talked about some potential for business development at the former Wheelers Building. More to come on that as the owner works her way through the process.
Really?
Yeah, not the entire building, but a portion of it. So we, I think what's also important there is once she starts getting through that, is this is a newer, smaller business that we can ask to come in and talk to us. Why did you pick this spot? Right? Why did you pick Woodbridge? So I think it's important. Something else everybody should have received, Amity Chamber of Commerce having the Community Awards since September 17th at the Marriott in Orange. That's honoring police and firemen from the 3 towns. I think Woodbridge is going to be honoring firemen, someone from the fire department, fire person, this year, because last year they had a police officer. Last weekend was the Amity Chamber Community Fair. I couldn't attend because I was away, but Bob, you could you give us some information there?
Yeah, so there was 21 vendors that had tables set up. The weather was actually nice, it wasn't too hot. It was 21, although very few Woodbridge businesses. It was kind of disappointing. I know that Charter Oak was there. There was one or two others, I can't remember who the others were. It was lightly attended, okay? And, Cliff and I, we've been working with Barry Cohen from the Amity Chamber of Commerce to try to get, more people on board, kind of get more synergy. Right now, the Amity Chamber is made up really more of outside businesses from Orange and other areas. We need to kind of push more of our people. A lot of our people really need, I think, a lot of coaching. I've spent a little time with a couple of the operators, like, hey, what are you doing to, grow your business? Geez, I never thought about that. Geez, thanks for spending, a couple minutes with me today. It's like, sometimes people have to kind of get out of the blinders they have on and think about what they need to do to grow their business. And so the Amity Chamber of Commerce had the symposium a couple weeks ago, and that was wonderful. You meet people, you learn different things, and I think the more we can do that type of thing will help. It was helpful. It was nice. Crest actually hosted it on the property. I'd be remiss for not mentioning them. They've been very gracious to us. Obviously, they did the connectivity thing there, but it was not as well attended as I think we hoped. It ended up turning out to be more of a business expo because all the different people at the booths were going around to each other's booths and talking about their businesses and that type of thing. So, I mean, it's the type of thing, if you go to something like this, and if you're at a fair like that or whatever happens to be, and there's lots of people, while you're like just quickly, taking orders, or you're quickly just talking to people, I will say, because it was more lightly attended, yeah, there was a lot of quality time for the people that did speak to people, that you really did get to know who they were because you had plenty of time to talk to them. So that was...
Yeah, I think that part of that issue may have been when this was first kind of broached with the town. They weren't looking for buy-in. They were looking for, Amity Chamber was going to run it. I mentioned, maybe you have a group like the Friends of the Library or something like that, and there really wasn't much outreach as far as I saw. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think going forward there has to be a little bit more of a community touch in order for folks to really care about it. We saw it in our emails. The Amity Chamber does a great job with publicizing things, but is it trickling down to somebody on Mapleville or somebody on Racebrook Road that's not down in that area that's not going to see that stuff? I don't know what the answer is, but
I think
we only wish them well.
I think Barry does a good job communicating with a lot of the business owners, but sometimes if you're running something like that, he needs to have a mechanism that he communicates with the public too, so that when they do something like that, it's an opportunity for people to come in and see these different businesses and what they do, and like, oh, wow, I would do business with them.
Right. Okay. Great. Thank you. Thank you for volunteering. Thank you for being there on that day. All right. So our next scheduled meeting is September 10th. It's at 6 o'clock, and then we are going to revisit. But after looking at the calendar, time for a special meeting as discussed. Okay. So with that said, anybody else have anything?
I have a couple things. Want to thank Crest for hosting the symposium that we had, and I also want to thank Cat Castelli for providing the refreshments at that symposium.
Thank you.
Just want to put that on the record.
Thank you.
Well, one of the things they had there was a, just thought of it, well, Infinity was there with their trailer, but also, I'm drawing a blank what they're called, the trailer where they had all the, I'm going to say sustainable ways to save energy, and I forget which, something that the town did a number of years ago where they did the energy audits and that type of thing. And they had this thing where you could have a bunch of things done at your house, and I said, geez, the town really should look at having you give this presentation again, because I know it was at least more than 10 years ago, probably 15 years ago, and I remember they came out to my house and, you know, they went around and there were certain things that you were eligible for, some light bulbs and some
Yeah.
shower heads and things of that sort, and they looked at some things that you needed to improve in your house, and it was a good thing.
Yeah, we did the same thing. It was great.
Yeah.
Like home energy solutions or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a good thing. It's no different. I mean, when the town sponsored, we had the solar company come in from Aegis, and I ended up using them, and they turned out being much better than some of the larger companies that were out there, and I'm happy I went with it. So.
With that said, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second. Shona. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you.